Today we paint a miniature from Fickle Dice Games. As usual, we paint with speed paints for our base colors and then we paint a little bit with Warpaints Fanatics. Our miniature painting today is very straightforward. Thus, we focus on discussing color harmony and color theory. Color harmony when it comes to transparent paints like speed paints can be a little bit trickier. Since you're dealing with transparent paints, layering these colors will be a little bit different than painting with opaque paints. With the help of our simple graphic, we hope to discuss color theory in a very straightforward manner so that everybody could follow. Oh, lastly, I have a link to Fickle Dice Games in the description below. I'm Don, welcome to my studio. This channel is supported by all these awesome brands. Also, special thanks to The Army Painter for making this video possible. Also, you could check out some discount codes and links at the description below. The underpainting I did with an airbrush. I used a black primer and then a gray paint and then of course white paint. The gray primer was airbrushed at around 1 p.m. angle and then of course the white primer or white paint was airbrushed at exactly 12 noon. Since we're painting with speed paints, I'm doing light dry brushing with white paint here so that we further bring out details. Now let this underpainting cure for an hour or two before painting with speed paints. Generally, people who perceive themselves as high-level painters do not like speed paints. I think this is so because you simply do not have the same control versus layering. Layering when painting over black primer and painting towards the highlights will give you the ultimate control. I do enjoy layering and painting base colors with ordinary acrylics like Warpaints Fanatics, but it can be very time-consuming. I love painting with speed paints, especially for base colors because you get a fairly decent looking base color before you paint towards the highlights. When painting with speed paints, you may want to paint, as a guideline, you may want to paint from light to dark. Also, by having a good underpainting, may it be zenithal-ish or just white primer, will give you the best results. You see in the video right now that I'm just painting speed paint straight from the bottle. No thinning, no whatsoever, and I'm just creating very nice base colors. If you want a little bit more control when painting with speed paints, you may want to apply the speed paints in two passes. Like the first pass would be your base colors and the second pass would be painted on the shade areas. This will give you more volume. Now we're layering with speed paints. We are using a thin down speed paint as a wash here, and I'll tell you why later in the video why I'm not using a wash. Browns are practically desaturated yellow-orange, orange, and red-oranges. So the brown wash is analogous to the yellow ochre base color. Analogous colors are colors beside each other in the color wheel. Utilizing analogous colors in your painting will always give you more color depth. Now we are just painting the armor of this miniature. We are using Gravelord Gray, which is a bit bluish and will give us nice separation from the red flags. Now at this point of this miniature painting, I'm adding more colors to simply give more interest to our painting. Similar to browns, greens will give us nice transitions over yellow ochre. Simply because greens are also analogous to yellows, as you can see on the right side of the color wheel. Other than adding color depth to your painting, analogous colors simply give more harmony to your painting. Now you can see we need a third color because the red flags and the skin tone of the snail is too warm. They're too warm and we need a cool color to balance the painting. Now if you find value out of this video, do give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Now we apply washes on our miniature painting. Washes and darker speed paints will darken your painting. So use this on the crevices and shady areas only if you do not plan to paint highlights. Washes are great. They're the fastest and easiest way to add contrast to your miniature painting. However, if you watch my older videos or most of my videos, I only apply washes on areas that I perceive are the shade areas. Now we're adding a bluish turquoise tint to the armor to give the painting more balance, but I decided it wasn't enough after painting. Like I said, washes will darken your painting unless you use analogous colors for your washes, like what I'm doing here right now. I'm using purple over red and skin tones. If you want darker washes or darker finish, you may want complementary colors for your washes. Like for example, the yellows, you could use blues and purples to darken the finish. Like I said, washes are great, they add contrast to your painting, but if you don't plan to paint a lot of highlights, apply them on the shade areas only. Now, before my final thoughts, a huge thanks to all my patrons at Patreon, Hajime Model Studio, and of course, the Army Painter for making this video possible. Now we paint highlights. Now I always say this in my videos, I love painting base colors with speed paints because you get quick base colors and even shade colors with speed paints. And since you have a good base color already, it's like you're just focused on painting the highlights in the latter part of the painting process. Speed paints are also great for blocking the colors, especially if you're still undecided in the color scheme of your painting. So even though we added a turquoise tint to the armor, I still feel we need a third color. Now we're using Tidal Wave to add an accent, a third accent color to our painting. Now if you don't plan to paint highlights on the blue shield, you may want to lighten up the underpainting for the Tidal Wave. I applied Tidal Wave in a couple of passes. And since the underpainting is kinda dark gray, it came out pretty dark, which is fine because it was expected and I plan to paint more highlights on the blue shield. But now, because of the blue shield, I feel that the overall painting is more balanced. Now it's a matter of just painting more highlights, especially for the NMM, to make the miniature look good. Now we are almost finished with the painting of this Fickle Dice Games miniature. Now if you don't plan to paint a lot of highlights, you're just going for tabletop quality painting, the two guidelines that will guide you when painting with speed paints and washes is 1. To paint from light to dark. Painting from light or bright colors to darker colors will give you ultimate control when painting with transparent paints. Another guideline when painting with transparent paints, speed paints, washes, or even inks, or even oil glazes is to paint with analogous colors, colors that are beside each other in the color wheel. By painting with analogous colors, you create very good color depth and of course, color harmony. By painting with analogous colors, you almost always create good blending and very nice transitions. That's it, Pansit. I hope you like this video. Do like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. Until next video, guys. Bye!